it's the old copy,
Uh-huh.
but you need the insert, so I sort of screwed up on that, I think it's a mistake. I read it today though.
But that has the information about the meeting tomorrow night.
It's gonna be crowded in that part of Keene, because I'm going to the Keene Firehouse.
Oh, you're going to the firehouse? So-
Yes, it's
and
right
where
around the
this
corner.
thing is at the
Yeah.
library.
So, yeah, parking may be interesting tomorrow night. I'm going early.
So that was from Ian Card about, it's some information about the Silvio
Oh,
Conti.
thank you. Yeah, I'd like to just look at that.
And it's got some links there, but,
You may feel awkward, but that's why I said it, was because I felt awkward.
Okay, I want to talk to you more about it
Okay.
at some point.
You follow what I mean?
No,
Okay.
maybe that's why I didn't feel awkward.
Okay, good.
Oblivious.
Well, good, yeah. Well, sometimes ignorance is bliss.
So I printed the agenda on some scrap paper. I had, well, not scrap paper, but only one-sided had been used, so you might have an opportunity to buy vitamins or something.
I think that's just where I think.
Thank you, you can share. Okay.
How's everybody?
Good, how are you?
Good.
So, Sam's not coming?
Hi, Don.
Sam is not coming.
somebody took my seat.
Glenn is not
Oh,
coming.
maybe not, I'll take Glenn's.
He's not coming.
Glenn won't be here and Sam won't be here, and I haven't heard from anybody else that will be here. Here's some more agendas.
Les won't be here, right? He's having his,
Well, yeah,
his surgeries.
he said 2 weeks ago that he was gonna miss a couple meetings, so he probably won't be there.
Yeah. And, you didn't hear from Jonathan?
No. Not this week, anyway.
Okay, so,
He's not in Morocco.
Sam? Yes?
Sam will not be here tonight.
Bonnie usually tells them.
Should we have a
Yes.
quorum?
we're missing,
Yeah, we have a quorum.
Okay.
we're missing Bonnie and Jonathan.
Does anybody mind if I open the door?
No,
Fine.
go for it.
And we're missing our selectmen.
He's coming, because the list of questions just keeps getting longer and longer.
Well, I guess we had other, you were at the select board meeting.
Oh, yeah, Marge was too.
Okay, so we can cover that, I guess, if we get to that.
Well, we need to,
Right.
in my opinion.
So I made a change to the minutes of last week at Chris Hansen's suggestion. And I sent an email, which I doubt any of you had time to.
That's odd.
I read it, although I forgot, I hadn't written the change in, but.
So, his suggestion was that I change one line, and so the original line was, for a start, we recommend that the select board define the wages for each department. Department head should not be allowed to propose wage increases. And I changed that to at least one member felt that the select board should define the wages and so forth. So changing it from a recommendation to the opinion of one person,
At least one.
at least one person.
That's okay.
It wasn't an action that we voted on, so.
No,
it
it's
wasn't
true.
a statement
I mean,
that
that
was made
covers it.
officially, so.
Seems a
Yeah,
little
I think
wimpy,
it-
but.
I think we recommend is too strong, but I often say we agree. When somebody says something, other people say things in support, and no one says anything against, then I do say we agreed, even though we didn't vote on it, so I don't know.
So if you're against it, guys, speak up.
Or forever hold you.
Yeah, or if you say, even if you just say, I'm not ready to agree with that, then I'll know not to say we agree.
Should we make a habit of going around the table with a discussion?
Well, we could, but I think
think we should either vote or not vote. I think it should be. I don't-
She's looking for terminology though.
Right, I know,
Exactly.
but that's what I'm saying. I don't think, it can be, there was a consensus, a general consensus, or there was a, I don't know,
I've heard-
consensus says everybody
I've heard
agrees.
some people say there was a feeling in the room, or the feeling of the room was blah, blah.
Mhm.
Maybe we should go around the table and say, you have any thoughts on this? Do you have any thoughts on this? Most people probably will say no, but just to see if anybody has any input and is being timid.
Well,
I think that we should support your effort to be precise, and when you feel a need for a vote or a poll or a show of hands or something on something, so that you can write it the way that you want
Well, I
it
think-
clear, then that would be great for you to say.
well, if no one objects then, I will use terminology like at least one member felt, or one member suggested, that kind of expression, without any attempt to say
Who
there
it
was
was?
agreement or not.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, I could say names, but, you know.
Maybe they'll highlight something like a lack of consensus.
I like the feeling in the room. It was brought
No.
up and the feeling in the room
Or-
was that everyone,
Just,
There
there was
was
a
general,
suggestion.
there was general agreement, or you don't want me to say that?
Well, there was
Or
general,
maybe-
there was certainly general concern about the whole thing.
Yeah.
Maybe at least one member. Rather
Agreed.
than just saying there was only one of them out there. You know?
Okay, well, thank you. I'll work
Okay.
on it, and please take note of that aspect of the minutes in the future, so you can help.
highlight it.
Okay,
Figure
and
out.
please let us know when you need
Help
more
the-
precision.
Help the group.
Okay,
Help the group.
Thank you.
okay.
So,
With that, do you?
with that adjustment to the minutes, is there a motion to approve last week's minutes as amended?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Okay, thank you. Welcome visitors. Welcome, Michael. Do you want to say anything about your process and what you're doing?
Sure, I'm Mike Gordon, run the computer store next door. This camera behind Chris, this is live streaming. The one behind, next to the water cooler, is just something I'm trying out to get better sound and video. Because after I do the live stream, the very next day, I upload that to YouTube, so if anybody wants to watch it, for archive or whatever. But I found that maybe I'm going to get better sound out of this one, so at some point it'll be just one camera.
Okay.
Is this, sorry, is this only available on YouTube, or is it available?
How does that play on your video? Okay.
Is it also available from like a Facebook page or something?
I do post a link in the Alstead Chronicles, and I've created a Facebook page for Alstead Government Oversight, so there'll be something there. The easiest thing to do would probably be to like that Alstead page,
Mhm.
and then make a shortcut for the YouTube channel. And I
Okay.
create playlists, so you can go in and just click it. It does all the complicated stuff for you.
Okay. Are you getting any feedback from folks about what you've been doing with the select board? And
I have been, it's all positive. It seems that, it's more useful than I thought it would be to some people.
okay. Well, I will publicly invite people who are interested and want to get more involved in beyond watching the live stream or the rebroadcast, that we're very happy to have visitors come
We
and
still use a few alternates, couldn't we?
we could use a couple of more alternates to be members in the event that we don't have a quorum and need some more people. So whoever's listening, you're welcome to be here. If you have
Group wave.
questions that come up and you can't ask them if you're just live streaming or if you're watching the YouTube, if you're here, you can bring up your questions, at the meeting, so, thank you. Okay. Let's see. Did I keep an agenda for myself?
Wasn't there supposed to be something on the agenda about like a charge or what we were really supposed to be up to and all that kind of stuff?
That was under new business, from last week.
Okay.
I'm not sure I put it down as a agenda item. Yes, I did. Discuss the
Yeah,
role of this committee versus any other group of concerned taxpayers, is how I said it, but
Okay, thank you. Sorry that I failed to
We
pick that
forgive
one
you.
up. But, where would you like to see that in the agenda?
Where? New business is
New
fine.
business, I think.
Right now?
Mhm.
Talk about it now? It is something that the select board needs to be involved in the discussion, so.
What exactly is the issue? Maybe we should state that up front.
Chris,
Sorry?
come on
Did you get a copy
down.
of the agenda, by the way?
I did not yet.
There's some extras there, and you can hand one to Michael if you want to. There's one on the chair by his camera, but he can't see it from there.
There you go, sir.
I didn't write into the agenda, but we do want to discuss the charge to our committee. You know, what is our mandate from those who mandated us to be here
I
and do
have
this
the
work.
postcard that was sent out.
I think that's a good place to start.
It says, seeks volunteers to accept appointment to a permanent advisory budget committee. Responsibilities will include monthly or more frequent meetings to review and advise on the current budget, actual expenditures, revenue, trust, and reserve accounts. Preparation with the selectmen of proposed operating budget and warrant articles for the next fiscal year. Preparation with the selectmen of quarterly reports to voters concerning where we are and what we are concerned about. Attendance at the deliberative session with a willingness to speak thoughtfully and clearly about financial issues. We hope to accept volunteers from a variety of walks of life.
So we're talking about this tonight because there are some concerns that we're not meeting this mandate. That's
Yeah.
correct?
I think the concern, if I could try to sum it up, is that in the past, the group did not act as an advisory committee. It acted as more or less its own committee, and it made its own recommendations directly to the voters. I'm not saying that's inappropriate or anything else. I'm just saying that seems to be the perception. I think the feeling of some is, absolutely, that this should be an advisory committee, both to the voters and to the selectmen. And I think if we were to put that in practical terms, I think that if we came together, you guys did your work, the selectmen did our work, we got together, hashed out the budget together, as opposed to trying to come up with competing budgets. I think that is what some people saw as where this should be going, as opposed to two competing budgets that get debated every deliberative session. Go ahead.
As I remember last year, the selectmen, we were started very late in the year, and the selectmen already had their budget. And so our position of presenting our recommendations directly to the voters was a question of timing and the fact that the selectmen didn't really care what we said, because they didn't come, they didn't ask us. And is the new select board prepared to do that? To ask us what our recommendations are? Or do you want to come to our meetings, all three of you, or how do you want to handle this?
Well, I don't know that I have all the answers, but I think between the two groups, we could probably come up with some ways that it would work well. So for example, last night we had David in to talk about DPW, which is a big chunk. And we had Glenn there from, DPW subcommittee, and we kind of talked through different issues. He had explained some of the things that he did working with Glenn and how they came about particular numbers, for example, why they are what they are, and what this meant, and things like that. I think that was a good way to do it. In other words, compared to last year, and we didn't know what we were doing. We were still debating what the organization of this group was at this point in the year last year, you know? But that was a great example. I mean, Glenn worked with David, we've worked with David. Out of all that came, you know, a first shot at the budget. And then I think we'll continue to work with David and work with you guys to nail things down.
It's my memory that that's exactly what happened last year, that we had a DPW subcommittee, and that you guys did work with
David.
Yeah.
David, and that you.
Very great extent.
And that went to
Yeah.
the select board.
So in that sense, I think we are doing exactly.
The difference, I think, is the timing. When were we working, when was the DPW committee presenting its stuff to the select board or?
It was pretty
getting-
late, and the first time David didn't have
David did
anything.
nothing.
Yeah, David
But you
did.
guys were compiling all this info.
Right.
We had meetings with David,
Yeah, you
Before that.
did.
and in fact, we ended up recommending that what the select board had allocated for materials, sand, gravel, salt, culverts, was insufficient given the need, given the fact that the roads hadn't been maintained for a whole year at all. And so we, at the deliberative session, gave our recommendation. And then this year, the roads still haven't been maintained, Mr. Selectman, even though you had the budget for more gravel, more sand.
Well, that's,
And I think
that's a
we-
different
we did
issue
that,
than the
yeah.
process of how we're,
Yeah, but
We're meeting
it
our
all-
mandate, but-
what that does speak to is the fact that it doesn't really much matter what the budget committee proposes, what the voters approve. It's what the selectmen authorize to be spent.
Well, the select board is the executive
Yeah.
branch of our
So,
government,
so I don't know why what we recommend is so important.
I see what you're saying, but I think the emphasis is on the wrong syllable here, that the budget's one thing, who's overseeing what's being done with that budget is another story. And that's what concerns me after sitting through the selectmen's meeting last night, that there were a lot of things that came out, you know, in terms of, you know, we didn't know stuff was here, and, you know, who's doing what and how we're allocating resources and little things like, it dawned on me after talking to Kim at the EMSG meeting last week, and he talked about how he'd gone up to Valley Fire, is that the name of the place, I believe? And he did it while he was working, which, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. But then I was thinking about the budget and the line items, and where did that come out of? You know, the Parks and Rec end of it, or the DPW end of it, or whatever, and, you know, so we don't really have a way to track how much time these guys, and there's a bunch of them that work for DPW that are firemen that, you know, go off and do this. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of issues there in terms of that. And the other issue that concerns me is communication. Like, you know, when I messaged you today about what the schedule is, and I, you know, kind of came back with the awesome thanks, well, I'd already talked to Linda, and she was gonna talk to you about what the schedule was. Nobody seems to know who the next department head is that's coming in.
Right.
And so it's like, all of a sudden, I'm thinking, well, geez, we've got EMSG should really be talking to Kim, and somebody from the police department, and, you know, the ambulance people, and so, all right, who's up next? You know, with the fire department, we're doing a lot of stuff with them, and potential for a warrant article. You got a police chief who's part-time at best, and so the question is, do you really want him when he should be passing the baton to somebody, doing this budget for next year, or letting somebody else work on it? So there's a whole bunch of issues here. It just seems that one thing begets another, and there's an awful lot of worker bees, and I can't help but wonder who's trying to pull all of this together.
Well, we
That
do-
concerns me, and I don't know that I have any answers either.
That's all right. Regarding Linda, we are gonna delegate some stuff. I mean, we all work too, we all have other obligations and things like that, so we do try to rely on Linda. So example, you know, we wanna get David in, he'll be the first one, and please schedule the rest of them afterwards. But I haven't got a schedule either. Typically, I think what we do is hear that Kim is showing up, or that the chief's showing up, or something like that. Your question was good, proactively, we need to go out and nail that down with her. We identified tons and tons of gaps. You know, we saw this going through the budget last year, there
And we
are
talk
tons of
about
things that
more.
we just don't understand. Don't think for a second that because you've been appointed to a selectman, that they give you the big binder, that it's the big book of secrets. You know,
Well,
that,
the other one that came up was the boot shelf.
Yeah.
that, there's some things, there's some electricity here and a little bit of support with that and stuff DPW does to help them. And Linda figures it probably doesn't amount to $5,000 a year, but conversely, do you leave it hidden someplace or do you bring it out so that the townspeople know that we're supporting this as a town?
Well, in that one, all the selectmen are agreed, which is good to say, that we do need to separate those numbers out. And that if we are gonna continue as a town to support Friendly Meals and Food Shelf, that needs to be either a dollar that's in the budget, easily identifiable, easy to read, or it becomes a warrant article. So, I think we're all agreed on that.
So we're all agreed that we have to track our detailed expenses better than we have.
We have to, if there is one major thing that comes out, and I got from last night that drives me nuts, is tracking of time. That labor is our biggest cost. And that's a gap. Especially when I just see numbers that say, here's how much full-time pay, here's how much part-time pay, and here's how much time we need for overtime, and here's contract numbers. Where's the data behind that? I have no idea. It's just trends. We budgeted this last year, there's a 3% increase, so let's ask for 3% more on top of that. And that's just where we lack systems and I think perseverance at the manager, director level to say, okay, we do have to collect this data. Selectmen haven't done a great job of putting that out there.
Here's another one that popped into my mind too, that the DPW guys are working their summer hours still, which I believe are 6 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon, 4 days a week. It's not getting light that early anymore, and we don't change the clocks, I think, till the first weekend in November or late in October or something like that, so it'll be dark in the morning, so what are they doing?
This is something I've never seen before.
No,
I've heard
there's-
people
there's
talk
lots of
about
people
it, and
that
I'm
do
sitting there going,
Lots of towns do that.
at some point, somebody's gotta explain to me what this winter hour, summer hour is. If that's the way it is, I just don't have a good answer for it.
It has been an issue that came up last year. We said, and why wait until December to start the winter hours? Why don't we start it in November when there's a good chance we are going to have snow and need some work done on the roads,
So,
rather than, than have Friday. They say, well, 40 hours is 40 hours, but if you're working 5 days a week as opposed to 4 days a week and the storm is on a Friday, they don't manage the time.
It picks up the
So-
other
I think David said last night that, excuse me one second, that he would change his hours as soon as there was a forecast of snow. But then he also said he didn't have a problem with changing them sooner if he was directed to do so or asked to do so. But you're right, it's like,
It was brought up last year and nothing was done.
Okay, well, it's an area that if you guys wanted to formulate an opinion on, I think we'd be open to it, with something to back it up, based on X, X, and X, this is what.
so I think we're getting off topic here. We're talking about whether this committee should work independently from the select board or not. And I think we're all in agreement that this is one area, tracking of expenses is one area where we do indeed want to work hand in hand.
Okay.
But I also would suggest that there are other areas, where we certainly want to be able to go off and formulate our own opinion, hopefully based on the same data. Certainly we're not gonna hide stuff from you. We're not like lawyers in court, So any data we find, we would share with you. But, people come to different conclusions based on the same data. So I think, even within this committee, we don't always agree, but I think that's useful still to the town to know out of, the select board and the advisory board or budget committee, how many people were in favor of this?
Right.
So, I don't think we need to come to consensus with the select board in a meeting, which maybe not everyone sees, and then say everyone, this is recommended by, both the budget committee and the select board.
No, I would hope in a process where we try to work more closely together, Last year, I mean, we were doing our own thing, we had Joel there for questions. If anything popped up, that was basically his role when he came to our meetings. If we had questions about how things happened, he'd answer them. But I don't think that anything's set in stone. I think we can look at this as constant improvement and say, how can we work better together to come up with a better product before the deliberative session? And realizing that at the deliberative session, there's still gonna be things that people are gonna disagree on. And the question then becomes is who presents that? You know, last year we presented it as the budget committee, and a lot of people feel, and I don't disagree, that that should be an individual's right. Just as I have the right to stand up and say, I don't like the budget the selectmen put forward, and me, Chris Friedman, recommend that we change this, and this.
So this is
As I
the,
recall, last year, we had come to unanimous agreement to present that budget.
That's not relevant to the point.
Well, so what dissenting opinion would have been presented last year?
Well, the whole budget committee, in a sense, dissented from the selectmen's budget. Our entire budget that we put forward was not, it was different than the selectmen, so there was no agreement going up to that point. And then even within the committee, towards the end, we had disagreement.
That's whether you're an optimist or a pessimist. I mean, the way I look at it is that we felt that that budget was adequate, but we needed a little bit more.
we amended it. We didn't propose an entirely different budget.
Right.
We
It's not that
amended it.
much change.
So,
Right. We agreed on 99.5% of it. I mean, I think that's what's important, is
Right.
we agreed on
Yeah.
all but
Well,
three pieces,
Maybe
three
four.
lines on, maybe four.
Do you
on-
remember that we were unanimous? Because that was
We were,
my
yeah,
memory.
it was, we were
Thank you.
unanimous, but and I think that the town and the selectmen, are very fortunate to have this committee, because there are three selectmen looking at all of this. There are all of us. There are three of us looking at one section of this, whereas the selectmen can't,
right.
can't look at it in the detail that we do, because they can't divide themselves that many places. So we are an advisory committee. That doesn't mean we're a stamp committee, and that doesn't mean we're an agree, it says we are going to agree with the selectmen, it says we are going to advise.
Yep.
And I will leave it at that. I mean, that advice could be changing something drastically lower, it could be changing something higher. I mean, that's not really the point. The point is we're looking at what is best for the town, and as a group, we're working, trying to decide what is best for the town, not what is the least number of taxes or the most number of taxes. It's a,
There was something funky right before the deliberative session, I don't recall what it was.
Had to do with it.
We couldn't
The
vote,
raises.
so there was some
12,000%,
funny
yeah.
stuff between us. But the point that I wanna talk about, which may not be what anybody else is interested in,
Come on.
is
Go for it.
that, at least Marge has voiced a very valid opinion, that we all sat up front, and for whatever reason, some people thought we were intimidating. I actually was kind of freaked out sitting up front, but it was really nice to hear Marge say that, because that was so not our intent.
Yeah.
I just thought it was easy to recognize that, okay, these people,
It
threw their
wasn't
hand
our
up and
intent.
volunteered,
It
and,
wasn't our intent at all, it was the select board's intent.
Yes, they
And
asked
they
us.
asked
that was their
Yeah.
request.
and they initially wanted us to sit facing out, and then it didn't work, but I just want everybody in town to know we're only here to help. And however that can be portrayed,
so
across.
let's try to wrap this up because you got everybody else, but go ahead.
Yeah, okay, just one more point. I think this committee is different from, say, any other group of concerned Alstead residents, in some very important ways. One is that, we not only have a name, we have a list of members, we have public meetings, we post minutes, and so forth,
Bylaws.
and bylaws. And because of all that, we are allowed to communicate directly, you know, to advocate publicly for political positions. And if you remember, there was a group of concerned citizens in 2013 who sent a mailing to the town residents asking them to attend the deliberative session. And as a result of that mailing, they received a cease and desist letter from the Attorney General of New Hampshire.